The afternoon sun in Rose Hill, Alabama hung low in the sky, casting long golden streaks that stretched across the dusty gravel of the county fairgrounds. The heat shimmered off the tin roofs, bending the air in waves that seemed to dance above the ground. The scent of kettle corn wafted through the air, mixing with the pungent smell of hay and diesel, and blending into the soft murmur of voices that floated beneath the bright banner for the annual livestock and equipment auction. It was a scene of southern simplicity, where life moved slow and everything felt tied to the land. And then there was her. 11-year-old Lily Harper stood at the edge of the crowd, barely tall enough to reach the auctioneer's belt buckle. She wore a sun-faded purple hoodie and jeans, the cuffs rolled twice to keep them from dragging in the dust. Her brown hair, messy and wild in the breeze, was pulled back with a fraying ribbon, the kind that had seen better days. In her hands, she clutched a dented cookie tin, the metal worn smooth in places from years of use. Inside it, she kept a collection of crumpled birthday bills, a few folded-up dollars, and a handful of sticky coins, the only currency she had to offer. She didn't move. She didn't speak. Her eyes were locked on the last crate in the row, as if it were the only thing in the entire world that mattered. Inside, a German shepherd lay curled in the corner. He was large, but skeletal, his ribs showing beneath a coat that had long lost its sheen, now patchy and dull. One of his ears stood upright while the other drooped. His fur was matted and tangled, and his body lay still, as though the weight of the world had settled on him too. But when Lily looked at him, and he looked back at her, something shifted. For a moment, everything around them, the clamor of voices, the oppressive heat, even the stillness of the air, seemed to fade. There was no barking from the dogs in the other crates, no shouting from the auctioneer, no smell of hay or diesel or dust in the air. It was as if the world had narrowed down to just the two of them, separated by the cold metal bars. And in that silent gaze, there was a kind of quiet recognition, something deeper than sympathy, deeper than sadness. It was an ache, a shared understanding, one that could only be felt by those who had been left behind. "She's wasting her time," someone scoffed from the crowd. "Poor thing doesn't know what she's doing," muttered another. But Lily didn't flinch. She didn't even look away. "Lot 53. The auctioneer's voice rang out, crisp and detached. "Retired service dog, 3 years old. Some health issues. No guarantees." No one stepped forward. The crowd seemed to shrink, as if unsure whether to offer pity or walk away. But then, Lily took a step forward. Her heart raced in her chest, but her voice was calm, steady even. "I'll take him," she said, her words clear and sure, cutting through the noise around her. The house at the edge of Rose Hill wasn't much, just 2 small bedrooms, faded shutters that sagged under the weight of time, and a porch swing that creaked when the wind got tired of blowing. But it was home. And for Lily Harper, that was more than enough. Inside, the furniture was second-hand, old but sturdy. The curtains were handmade by her grandmother, draping the windows with simple patterns that added warmth to the rooms. The walls, though, held something deeper, a quiet, invisible weight, the weight of things left unsaid, of memories too painful to speak aloud. Lily shared this house with 2 women, her mother, Emily, and her grandmother, May Harper. May was as sturdy as old oak, her silver hair always neatly braided, her back straight even when the arthritis tried to pull her down. She had spent her younger years as a veterinary nurse and had spent her later years raising Lily after tragedy turned their world inward. She didn't waste words, but when she spoke, they mattered. Emily, Lily's mother, had once been a bright schoolteacher, full of energy and ideas. But that had all changed 3 years ago when Lily's father, Daniel Harper, a local firefighter, died in a tragic accident. Since then, life had been hard for Emily, and she carried the weight of grief like a stone in her chest. She had withdrawn into herself, and the brightness that had once filled her seemed to dim with each passing day. The grief had shaped the house, and it shaped Emily in ways that even she didn't fully understand. It was as if a part of her had been buried with Daniel, leaving only echoes behind. Shifted Emily now worked the night shift, Maple Street diner pouring coffee with tired hands and soft smiles. The kind of woman who apologized when someone else bumped into her. They made things work barely, but not with ease. Bills came before birthdays. Worries whispered louder than lullabibis, and Lily, once bubbly and full of questions, had grown quieter. Not by choice, but by necessity. She didn't talk much at school. She didn't cry when other kids would have. And she never mentioned the nightmares. Not even when they left her clutching the old stuffed bear. She never admitted she still kept butanimals. She understood them, and they somehow understood her. That's why. When she saw the dog at the auction, the one everyone had given up on, something in her heart had stirred low and fierce. She didn't want to save him. She needed to ride home. Because saving him meant maybe, just maybe, she could save a part of herself too. The ride home was quiet. The old pickup truck rumbled over gravel roads as May drove with both hands on the wheel, eyes steady on the fading horizon, beside her in the passenger seat. Lily sat silently, cradling the frayed leash like it might unravel if she let go. In the truck bed, the dog lay curled in a bare blanket they'd brought just in case. He hadn't moved much, only lifting his head once when Lily whispered, "We're going home." She named him Bear before they even pulled into the driveway. Not because he was big, though he was, or strong because he wasn't anymore. Sheena met him Bear because something about him felt ancient, like he'd been fighting invisible battles long before. She arrived back at the house. Bear didn't resist when Lily led him toward the blanket small shed out back. It used to hold chickens, but now it held only dust, a few bales of hay, and silence. Lily spread her favorite blanket, the navy one with faded rocket ships, over the hay. She folded it, carefully smoothing the corners like she was tucking in a friend. "This is yours now," she whispered. Bear didn't respond, didn't wag, didn't even blink. He simply lowered his body onto the blanket, stiff and slow, and let out a long sigh, the long sigh kind that feels like it's been waiting years to leave from the doorway. May watched them, arms crossed over her cardigan. Her eyes were sharp, but not unkind. "He's in rough shape, Lily," she said gently. "This won't be easy." Lily nodded. "I know," but she stayed there even after the sun dipped below the trees and the crickets took up their nightly chorus. She sat beside Bear with her back against the wall, knees drawn up, and Lily nodded, one hand resting near his paw. He didn't move toward her, but he didn't move away either, and sometimes that was enough. That night Lily didn't go back inside after dinner. She stayed in the shed, curled beside Bayer, her hoodie pulled up over her ears and her flashlight resting on a bale of hay. May came out once with a mug of warm milk, didn't say anything, just placed it down and gave Lily's shoulder a gentle squeeze before returning to the house. The old blanket, "You're safe now," beneath them smelled like childhood and thunderstorms, like safety. Bear hadn't moved much since lying down, but he wasn't trembling anymore. His breathing had slowed, deepened, and when Lily whispered, "You're safe now," she almost believed it herself. Sometime before dawn he shifted just slightly. His paw twitched and his head inched closer to her leg. She didn't move, afraid the "in the morning" moment might shatter if she did so. She just stayed still, her fingers brushing the edge of his matted fur. In the morning, Lily rubbed the sleep from her eyes and opened the barn door. Sunlight spilled across the floor in warm golden patches, and Bear was sitting up, not fully, not fast, but upright. His ears weren't fully alert, but his head turned when she spoke his name, and for the first time she saw a flicker in his eyes, a small light like the pilot flame on a at school long-forgotten stove. She knelt beside him, gently cupping his face. "You remember something, don't you?" she whispered. Later that day at school, Lily kept mostly to herself as usual until the whispers started. Someone had heard she brought home a dying dog from the junk auction. By lunch it had turned into jokes. "Zombie dog," someone muttered behind her back. Lily said nothing. She'd zombie dog learned that silence was sometimes stronger than words. But someone else hadn't. "I think, Service. Dogs are smarter than most people," a voice said. She turned. Ethan Rhoda's the quiet kid with messy blonde hair and two big glasses. He looked straight at the others and didn't flinch. And just like that, Lily wasn't alone. That weekend the air in Rose Hill was heavy with the promise of rain. Low clouds pressed down on the hills like in Lily Reed's old quilt, and the wind stirred the leaves in nervous whispers. Inside the shed, Lily sat cross-legged beside Bear, her flashlight balanced between her knees, flipping through a borrowed book on basic dog training. The book had been a gift from Ethan. He'd brought it over after school with a quiet shrug, saying, "My brother used this with his therapy dog. Maybe it'll help." It was old, the pages wrinkled and yellowed. But Lily Bear doesn't bark read every word like it mattered. Bear still didn't bark, he barely responded to commands. But he watched her, always watched her. His eyes followed her like he was trying to remember, something buried deep beneath scars and silence. That's when she noticed it. While brushing his fur slowly and gently, her fingers traced a strange pattern along his left flank, a series of raised ridges barely visible under the thinning coat, old scars long healed, but never a strange pattern forgotten. She leaned closer, heart beating faster. "Grandma," she called softly. May appeared in the doorway a minute later, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "What is it?" Lily pointed. "Look." May knelt beside her, adjusting her glasses. Her fingers, though stiff with age, moved with the practiced calm of someone who had tended to many broken creatures in her life. "These are old wounds," she murmured. "Deep ones not. Something worse, from a fight, something worse." She shifted Bear's ear gently and paused. There, hidden along the inner edge, was a faint tattoo, just a string of numbers and letters almost unreadable. May exhaled military ID. This dog wasn't just trained. He was assigned. Lily's throat tightened. "You mean he belonged to someone?" May nodded slowly. "Someone who loved him. Someone who lost him." At that moment, Bear shifted, his ears twitched. His eyes blinked slowly, heavily, and then fixed on something that wasn't there. Not Lily, not May, but something else. Someone else. His body tensed just slightly, like a wire being pulled tight, as if in that small, quiet space a door inside him had opened. His body, and a memory long buried, slipped through the crack. A voice, a hand, a battlefield, a bond so strong at once defied death, and a loss so deep no bark could ever express it. In the days after discovering the tattoo and the scars, something in Bear began to shift. Little by little, the old dog moved with more purpose. His limp was still there, but less pronounced. His appetite returned slow but steady. He, when Lily walked in, lifted his head when Lily walked in. Sometimes when she said his name, his tail even thumped the floor. He started responding to simple commands. Sit, come, stay. Not quickly, but with the slow recognition of someone remembering an old song from another life, and Lily felt it too. Like his healing somehow mirrored her own every small step. Bear took forward, made her chest lighter, her world brighter for the first time in a long, when the wind howled time. She felt like maybe she wasn't broken either. Then the wind howled. It was nearly midnight when it started. Branches scraping against windows, leaves skittering across Rose Hill's quiet streets. Lily was just about to drift off, curled in bed with her blanket, pulled to her chin, when a sharp guttural bark shattered the stillness. She sat bolt upright. Bear never barked. She scrambled out of bed, heart racing, just as Bear. Then came the smell. Smoke barked again, louder this time, urgent, raw. His claws clicked against the wood floors. He paced in front of the front door, tail stiff, muscles trembling beneath thinning fur. Bear, Lily whispered, but he didn't look at her. Then came Thesmel smoke. Not from their house. From somewhere nearby. May was already coming down the stairs, robe flapping, phone in hand. Her voice was calm, practiced as she. But Bear didn't wait, called the fire department. But Bear didn't wait. The moment the front door opened, he bolted into the night, with Lily chasing, barefoot, gravel stinging her heels. It didn't take long to find it. Just 3 houses down, flames were curling up the Harbor family porch. A woman was outside, clutching her daughter, sobbing. "Mason's still inside," she cried. "He must have gone back in." Bear froze. His eyes locked onto the distant Bear, froze, his eyes glow. Orange, wild, alive. And in that instant, it was no longer just a fire. It was memory. He saw the battlefield, heard shouting, felt the heat of explosions. He remembered the chaos and the silence that came after being left behind, forgotten. For one breathless moment, Bear stood at the edge, caught between past and present, a choice. Run toward pain again, or turn away. Then he looked at trust, purpose, love, Lily. Just one look, and something passed between them. Trust, purpose, love. Bear turned and ran into the fire moments. Later, a shadow emerged from the smoke. Bear staggering forward with Mason draped across his back, his small arms loosely hooked around the dog's neck. The boy coughed weakly, his face covered in ash. But he was alive. Someone screamed, someone cried. The sirens hadn't arrived, But the rescue had already happened. Bear collapsed on the lawn, singed but breathing, and Lily watching. Through tears whispered, "You remembered who you are." News of Bear's bravery spread faster than wildfire. Neighbors talked, photos were shared, and within 2 days the town of Rose Hill had rallied around him. A small ceremony washed outside the elementary school. The mayor gave a speech. Someone made a small ceremony cardboard sign that read, "Hero Dog." Bear sat beside Lily, wrapped in a clean bandage and a soft blue scarf someone had sewn overnight. His burns were healing, though his steps were still slow. But his eyes were brighter than ever, watchful, present. Lily stood close, one hand on his back as applause rose from the crowd. She didn't smile much. But something in her chest felt warm, like a coal rekindled after a long winter. Then she saw him, standing beneath the shadow of a maple tree at the far edge of the crowd, half hidden by branches, was a man late 30s, maybe early 40s, tall, broad-shouldered, military posture. He wore a faded green army jacket, jeans, and scuffed boots. His hands were deep in his pockets. But it was his eyes that caught her. He wasn't clapping, wasn't smiling. He wasn't clapping, wasn't talking to anyone. He was looking at Bear. Only Bear. Even when the crowd laughed or cheered, the man never looked away, and Bear noticed his ears lifted slightly. His body leaned forward, nose twitching toward the wind. Then just as quickly as he appeared, the man turned and walked away, disappearing behind a row of parked trucks. "Did you see that guy?" Lily asked quietly. May, balancing a tray of lemonade, glanced over her. He was watching Bear's shoulder. "Which one?" "The one in the army coat." He was watching Bear. He looked like he knew him, May said. Nothing, but the lines around her eyes tightened. Something had just shifted. Not in Bear, not in Lily, but in the past. Stirring, waking, returning that evening, long after the crowd had left and the folding chairs were stacked beneath the porch. A knock echoed at the Harper house, returning that evening. May answered the door. On the other side stood the man from the ceremony. Clean-shaven eyes, tired but steady. "Logan Pierce," he said softly. "We met earlier." May gave a small nod. "Come on." Inside the house smelled of cinnamon and fresh laundry. Emily poured tea. Without asking, Lily sat on the edge of the couch, nervously twisting a loose thread on her sleeve. Bear lay on the fireplace, half dozing, but alert the moment the door opened. The moment the door opened, stepped into the room, Bear raised his head. They looked at each other, not like strangers, not even like friends, like soldiers recognizing someone they never stopped waiting for. Logan knelt down slowly, tears already threatening. "Hey, buddy," he whispered. "It's me." Bear stood stiff but steady and pressed his head into Logan's shoulder. The man wrapped his arms around the dog, and for a long time, no one in the room spoke. Logan finally pulled back, eyes glassy. "Thought he died overseas," he said. "There was an explosion. He pulled me out, then disappeared. They told me he was MIA. He looked at Lily. But you brought him back. You gave him a second chance. Thank you." Truly, Lily didn't know what to say, so she just nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Logan stayed for dinner. They talked about Bear's recovery, the fire, the commands. He still. Goodbye, Shadow remembered. There was laughter, even a few quiet smiles. And when it was time to leave, Logan knelt once more. "You've still got work to do," he said, stroking Bear's fur. "Looks like you've already found your new mission." Then, voice trembling, he whispered, "Goodbye, Shadow." Bear didn't move to follow. He stayed beside Lily, silent. Shore home the next morning. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the next morning, the Harper house painting golden patches across the wooden floor. Lily sat on the porch steps, cradling a warm mug between her hands. The world felt quieter now, but in a good way, settled whole inside. Bear stretched his limbs, slow but steady. He made his way to the door, nose nudging it open just enough to slip. Outside, he eased down beside Lily, his head resting on her foot like he had the very first night. His eyes were calm, his breathing, the first night, slow. There was no tension in his body, no fear, only trust. Lily reached down and gently stroked his fur. "You're home," she whispered. Bear blinked slowly, his tail brushing the porch in one soft, steady thump. And in that small, ordinary moment beneath the morning sun, with nothing to prove and nowhere to run, he was